All right, so welcome back to Lex Talk. Lex Gray here. Let's discuss something that I'm sure everybody considers, or at least weighs their options for when they are about to start a solo RPG campaign. One shot, short campaigns, most likely it's going to be a quick consideration, but a long campaign, different story. And that has to do with the amount of player characters you want to start with. So I'm still figuring how I'm going to title this because I don't want people searching solo RPG videos to be confused by, oh, group play versus solo play. I've done videos like that before. But this is actually about the amount of player characters that you want to start with. Basically, it depends on the system. Obviously, systems like Scarlet Heroes, it's more breaded for a solo lone wolf character. But then, practically every other system in existence, you can have a party. It also depends on the setting, too. Think about like Fallout, post-apocalyptic, typically lone wolf, one character. Occasional allies you get sprinkled in there, but or film noir, private eye, if you're going that route, usually one character, or if you have a secretary or friends. Again, setting dependent and also game dependent. But when you are in the pre-production process of making your solo RPG campaign, you want to consider the pros and cons, or the advantages and disadvantages, of having a party of two or more player characters versus a solo lone wolf character. Both can be fun. Both can be a very involved process. Don't let it discourage you. I'd say try out both. And if you have, please list your opinions down below in what you prefer. Do you prefer to have a party of 2, 3, 4 characters, or just one lonely lone wolf character, which I often do? But obviously, I've used, especially in dungeon crawls, a small party of characters. The usual assortment: fighter, magic user, thief, warlock, etc. So when you have a party of characters, let's go down this avenue first, or this alley. When you have a party of 2, 3, or 4 characters, no matter the setting or no matter the game, you have to consider what you're also handling at the same time. The game master. When you solo play, you're not only controlling the player characters, but you're also controlling the game master. Dungeon master, referee, warden, whatever game you're playing, whatever they reference it as, it is the GM. There's also that third small role in there that we often forget about: the audience. When we solo play, we are role playing as the characters, and then the game master. But there's that little small corner that we have to consider: the audience as we see it. So when we role play, the game master does their you implement the game master conflict into the adventure. The audience, it's like, okay, so here's what we witnessed. Here's what happened. The characters did this. The conflict happened. They dealt with the conflict. Next page. Audience, what do you like? What does the audience think? That was good. Or, let's try something different. With player characters, 2, 3, or 4, you gotta juggle their role playing, their characters as themselves, their chemistry between each other, their character sheet details, their stats, tracking all of that. That can be your homework assignment. Again, don't let it discourage you. It's solo play. You'll make mistakes. It's not a problem. And then their interactions with the world. When they push that world, the world will push back in some velocity. Then you got to track all of their, depending on how intense you track, you take notes. All of their actions are very monumental moments, have to be considered. Like, who do they meet? What do they find? What do they do? What do they accomplish? What do they fail at? Do you want to track all their roles? Do you want to track all of their conversations? All of those threads, like in Iron Sword, you're tracking all these threads, these little storylines. Then you reach the conflict, you reach the boss fight, you level up, etc. So again, group play, or group play or character play, is very involved. There's a lot to consider, which can also be very fun. If you like doing the paperwork, if you like doing the page turning, and you like focusing on the group chemistry and role playing those moments when they're just around the campfire, chit chat about what happened and what they want to do next, Go for it. More power to you. Now, let's switch over to solo play, to solo character, the lone wolf. The lone wolf has the advantage of just tracking one player character. It's less of a burden. There's less encumbrance you got to deal with. You can focus on more on the environment, focus on the adventure, one character sheet to worry about, especially if it's whether it's a rules light system or a crunchy system, like groups. And then that gives you time to focus on establishing more conflict in the future or interacting with the world around it. You have a shared balance between the lone wolf character and everything happening around him or her, or they. But the disadvantage here is the chemistry, the lack of chemistry that your character could have with other teammates, other group members. But there's a remedy for this. If it's a lone wolf character, you can populate the world depending on the setting. Again, post-apocalyptic, more sparse in body count as far as who you encounter, but you can interact with NPCs. You can be more lively. Or your character, maybe they are very secluded. They are a loner. They're an introvert. They don't like it to interact with others. That's just how they are. That's probably why they are lone wolf in the first place. Or by circumstance, their family died, or they got banned from their stronghold, or etc. So both have their advantages and disadvantages. Advantages with group play, obviously the chemistry, the role play in there, but the disadvantage would be the amount of tracking and weightlifting you had to do for these characters while handling everything else in solo play. The advantages of lone wolf scenario, you're tracking one character, you can focus more on the character himself, and it's easy to track the character sheet details, and then you're also able to handle, you can focus, you have a lot of shared effort with the world building concept, but the disadvantage would be the lack of role playing moments between other characters outside of your own team, or what could be the team. Will it get boring? That's undebatable. It's subjective. All of this is subjective. Let me put that disclaimer, what I probably should say in the beginning of this video, but all of this is subjective. We all have our personal preference. If we want to handle 5, 10 player characters at once, just let that go into a dungeon and slaughter into one remaining survivor. Dungeon Crawl Classics, obviously, I'm talking about. But or you prefer the lone wolf character. That's me. I like the lone wolf character. I have a character I often use in earlier videos called the lone wolf, for wolf, WHOLF. It again, entirely up to you. And more so, like I've mentioned in my Lex Talk videos before, please feel free to share your opinion below. I don't want to be the only one jabbering on about it here. I want to see your comments down below, and to spring the engagement factor and hear what you guys think. What's your thoughts on my opinion? What's your opinion on group characters versus the lone wolf character? Mention games that you like that work best with either scenario or either type of play. And then also there's a hybrid factor. You start with a group and they dwindle away, they die off, or they like a band, they disband, they go their separate ways, and you turn into lone wolf character. Or you focus on a character that's in another part of the country, then you jump over here, like in Grand Theft Auto 5, you jumping around with different characters, and while you are over here, that stuff happens over there. So that can become an amount of world building progress. So you're over here, your character's doing this, but what's happening over there with Junior while Tim over here is fighting these zombies? Well, Junior over there is studying to become a master magician, while Pete in the corner is in prison for a crime he didn't commit. But they all know each other somehow, or they all will eventually, like a movie Traffic, they will all eventually converge into one point in the story. So there are multiple avenues you can try here. Actually, that's actually a really good idea. I wonder if anybody's ever tried that before, like Traffic. I think I'm thinking of the correct movie as for a reference, but basically you're role-playing, you're focusing on player characters completely in different areas in the world, and they do not know each other, but for some reason that you have to figure out a way for them to all converge into one point in the story, whether it's a literal location or a literal moment. So that is interesting. Like the guy in the prison cell, Pete, he can be transferred over to another prison. Junior is he finds a job at that prison, and the other character, I totally forgot his name, Chris or Steve, whatever, he gets arrested and then put into that prison, and then they all somehow meet. So one is a prison guard, the other two are actual prisoners. long, you know, and let that unfold from there. Obviously, there are thousands of different ways you can make that work, or different types of narratives. Like in sci-fi, an abandoned ship is over there. There's one guy on a planet. There's another guy who's fixing a space station. He's a spacewalk, and they all somehow meet later on in the story. Or an underground, the Underdark. You have two that are captive by a goblin, by these demonic possessed goblins, and there's one other character on the surface who's looking for help, and he stumbles and falls into a trap, and he finds these two trapped, and they become a little team that they have to help each other and escape. There's all these different types of avenues. So again, going from group player characters to that very unique aspect of a hybrid into my favorite lone wolf. So, but I'm actually unintentionally intrigued myself with that hybrid method where you're role playing in different areas at the same time. The setback, well, not really setback, the burden of that, or the thing to consider, the mechanic, is world building across the board. You have to remember stuff progresses in different areas as you do so. And I want to mention that my friend GM Ryan, we haven't played in a while, but we had a month-to-month campaign, D&D 5e, conventional 5e campaign, going for like a year, and we haven't played for a few months now. But what we were doing, we had characters that my characters, I controlled 4 characters, and it was like a Suicide Squad, but in fantasy, in the past. And my characters were spellbound to complete the mission. They were all like criminals in the past, though they were given a second chance, but they were spellbound to complete the mission. If not, their head gets blows up, like in Suicide Squad from DC. So there's the king and his mage cast that spell, or the wizard cast that spell. They got to go out and do the thing for the king, and there's all this conspiracies going on, and so eventually my team gets separated by either by choice or by conflict, and then I have to each time we have a session, I decide, well, in this session I'm going to control characters 1 and 2, and the next session characters 3 and 4, and then maybe 3 and 4 split up. So now I have 3 small groups within my 4-player characters. One dies off, and then the next 2 die off. So now I'm down to 1. But before those deaths, I was basically controlling different characters. Now, kudos to GM Ryan. He was handling all in here. Not much. He wasn't taking much notes. He had this thing planned for years, and so he was tracking world building when my characters were doing things here. This faction got stronger, or this explosion happened, or this event unfolded to affect my characters later on. So a lot of crisscross and a lot of world building happening outside of my characters while we kind of jump back to check on these guys. So you have to remember, there's also world time to consider compared to what we perceive as real time. So, and those are other mechanics we can talk about in a future video in terms of world building. But I just want to make a note here that try out all of this. Don't don't put all your eggs in one basket. Try out each one step by step. See which one you're comfortable with, depending on the game itself. Again, I always recommend use rules-like games. Maybe not too light. No, I'm a fan of Fate, but I often find myself going back to like Maze Rat's Karen or something like that, where they have a bit more rules, a bit more crunch, just a bit more, and just enough to roll some dice, whether the 3 attributes or not. But still love Fate. Don't want to talk dirty about it, but essentially, I'm basically a rules light system that has just enough dice rolling, but won't become an issue where the mechanics take over the experience. So it doesn't become a homework assignment for you. So that's just about it. Hope you guys enjoyed. I know I'm kind of all over the place with this one, but that's really going to be the pattern here on Lex Talk. Again, please list below what you prefer, and please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And as always, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.